by alone inside. He's got the breakaway with the touch to the right. Goal! Everything you wanted from this debut. It's Brandon by taking a shot with the left. Goal! Isaac Friend from 25 yards out. The equalizer. Will Kidd with the touch of the goal. It's a go-ahead goal. Minneapolis City.
This is the People's Pitch Podcast, the official podcast of your Minneapolis City Soccer Club, brought to you by Summit Brewing Company.
A good brisk day to you, my friends. This is the People's Pitch Podcast, the official podcast of your Minneapolis City SC. I'm joined as John Bisworm. Hey, we're coming at you after a long, relaxing Labor Day weekend, and it's because of that long weekend that our systems are a little off kilter, if you know what I'm saying. So we're a little delayed this week, but better late than never, right, John?
Right. I mean, I wouldn't call it a relaxing weekend. We had that huge hailstorm, which in turn required me to do like 8 hours of yard work on Sunday.
Oh.
So thank you so much, Mother Nature, for that. Really wanted to substitute drinking beers while my kids played in a pool out in the backyard. But anyways, I survived. So Nate, how are you doing, man?
I'm good. Those of us who live in the city, we didn't get really hit with that hail, so I lucked out.
Oh man, it sucked.
Well, we've got we've got a real easy, quick show again this week. I shouldn't call it quick because our guest is a little long in the tongue, but we are talking Ben Wexler Brotherhood Cup Week 3. We're getting game recaps and results, as well as welcoming our guest, head coach Matt Van Benskote.
So the MPLS is back, rolled out Week 3, and 4 teams were hungry to get a W under the lights at the NSC complex up in Blaine. Beautiful new complex. But a reminder, the purpose of this league, if you want to check it out and get more details on it, you can go to mplscitysc.com/7v7-league. It's simple, 7v7 format. The teams consist of City 1 and 2 players, some potential future players, some trialists, some friends of friends. A lot of guys did the old phone a friend option, and we were able to fill some teams out. Cool names after Minnesota musicians. We got Tackled by Turtles. Obviously after Trampled by Turtles, the Bob Dillionaires, Morris Day and the One-Timers, and the Paisley Park 99ers. Every week, one of our 4 teams pairs off with each other. So 2 games per week, side by side. Besides overall record, we're going to be keeping track of like goals. We'll talk about the Golden Boot rate. There's a weekly MVP. We have assists that are tracked. There's some rumblings that the citizens are going to be handing out some supporter group awards at the end of this.
Yeah.
And we're also practicing social distance fan inclusion. So
it's awesome.
It's all been great, man. Why don't you were up there? So
that's true. The social distancing fan situation is in full effect. I went up there with most of my family. So my wife, and my daughter with us. We had a really nice area just to hang out as a fam. Very far away from anyone else, and I was able to try to keep an eye on both games. I don't know how you do it, John. I'm sure you get a lot of recaps from other people afterwards when it's up to you. But I will tell you,
I don't necessarily sit in a fan designated area.
That's true.
I have the all access COVID pass.
You're right in the middle of both of them. Yeah, you're able to just kind of swivel.
Well, and as we found out, I did participate in playing in the league, so I was able to get a very quick and very detailed firsthand recap of what happened in that game.
That's true. So this last the 99ers against the Bob Dillionaires, and that one was kind of the marquee matchup of the day. So that's where we sat. I wanted to check that one out. Featured the Oliver brothers against each other. We had
happy birthday to them. Today, both of them were born, so congratulations to those guys. Another trip around the sun for them.
Yeah, happy birthday. If Mick Hutton had shown up, it would have been like 2 sets of twins on the soccer field at the same time. It would have been crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
But he did not. So in this matchup, Zuhair opens the scoring for the 99ers. that assist. So I was really feeling my MVP pick from last week. Opening the score 1-0 99ers. Kind of a surprise since the Dillionaires were supposed to be the high-powered offensive team. Nice cross across Troy Luegi's net. Found a Dillionaire at the back post to tap it in and even that up at 1-1. Again, like I said, I was expecting kind of a high-powered offensive game, but really it was 2-1 at the half, thanks to a goal from the Gato, assisted once again from Mito. And it was back and forth stuff here in this game. I was really surprised how but when you've got, I think we'll talk a little bit in a second about kind of a couple of reasons for that. But John, I really first want to talk, who is this Gato guy and where did he hone his fancy skill set? Because this dude was kind of one of those guys that would stand still over the ball and you had no idea what direction he would go. And you're thinking he's going direction A, direction B, and he goes direction C.
Yeah, he hit triangle on you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
turbo button and triangle. Oh god. That's a FIFA joke for those of you not following along. So his full name is Javier Juarez, but he goes by the Gato. And he actually came to us from
no way.
He also plays in the Hispanic League across the cities with a few current and former city players. And when we were looking for some younger but also experienced players to kind of layer into our City 2 team as we were leveling up into obviously it didn't happen, but we were going to be joining the UPSL. We kind of put out a call to a couple different guys and just asked like, who are we not seeing in the pink and black? And Gato was one of those players that we were recommended. So he did get swept up into our trial process over the winter and clearly has not disappointed. And if you remember back to our game, our only game at Maple Grove High School last season, where we had the Maple Grove alumni combined for the game winner against the Twin Stars when Stewart, Luke, and Hoof combined for the throwback goal, I'm calling it. Gato was the player who scored the lone goal for Twin Stars against us in the first half to go into halftime 1-0. So, 1-1. So, he's got the pedigree, and I think that we'll be talking with our guest here in a little bit, and kind of he dives in a little bit more about Gato. But yeah, you're right. I mean, he's the real deal.
So, moving over to the first half action of Tackled by Turtles versus Morris Day and the One-Timers, we found for Tackled by Turtles Dan Hudeman in net once again, and it did not go well in the first half for our friend Dan and the Turtles. The first goal given up was a penalty kick. Will Kidd slotted that home. A set piece goal was given up for number 2. Will Kidd scored a very quick goal, number 3. So he had a brace on the day, and I'm thinking, man, I should have picked Will if he's good. Scoring 2 goals in the first half. And I also thought, like, man, if only there was a way for people who were playing Pick'em to know when Dan was going to play.
Right.
Because that would make their picks a lot easier. but
he hasn't fared the best, and it's not his fault.
No, it's not his fault. And here's the deal, Dan. Here's the deal, John. In the end, I was being discriminatory. I was being ageist against the Dan Hodeman because the Turtles pulled one back. Cole Schwartz, who we will talk about in a bit, was able to score a quick goal before that. Turtles settled one at halftime. Second half action, we don't know what happened, so that's when our guest Matt is gonna fill us in. But second half action in the back to the Dillionaires 99ers side, and Mito opens the second half, scoring after some really nice defensive and goalie work. Finally gave way to his really short range shot. Dix for the 99ers was all over the place. He was making some really nice short range saves, really quick reflexes, Who is this guy? What's his story?
So I believe you're talking about Mitch Wolf. So Mitch is actually the goalkeeper coach at the high school that I help out at in the fall, and he played with Mike Hutton at St. Thomas, and then post St. Thomas, did what most players with the aspirations of continuing to go on and play soccer after high school. He kind of put his nose to the grindstone, ended up in Scandinavia playing in Sweden until unfortunately he got a bout of meningitis, and then it was very serious, actually, no joking aside. Almost killed him. It was so serious. So he came back to the States and healed up, and then worked his way towards basically giving up on soccer from a professional standpoint, and then took a day job. And then 2 years ago, he was brought in as the training goalkeeper for Minnesota United, and he did that for 2 seasons. And then when I latched on to coach with him, I was like, hey, you should, we're always looking for goalkeepers. You should come out, but he couldn't make it work until this year. But Mitch is one of those guys that, now that you've heard his background, it kind of makes sense, with not only what he can do, in the goal. He's really good with his feet, his communication, really good out of the back. And he's just the real deal. And it doesn't surprise me that he was able to put on a show for you while you were up there and playing.
Yeah, well, the second half for this game was back and forth stuff again all night. Max Stewart pulls one back. He had a nice tap in from across, delivered from the right side, and the 99ers are within, or the Dillionaires are within one, and this game could have gone either way. But in the end, nail in the coffin was Mito with another goal. Hoof was really getting, hate to say it, but Hoof was getting hoofed on the back line. Maybe he was having an off night, but it did not feel like his game was well suited for the pace and the small spaces that the 99ers were able to move the ball in, and he was getting turned around, man. And all of a sudden it was full time, and the 99ers walked away with the victory. There was some confusion from the ref as to the score, but I believe it was 5-3. The Olivers were definitely not happy with that ref.
The Olivers aren't happy with any ref.
They're famous for mouthing off to everyone and anyone, and I think collectively they were walking off the field, letting him know that that he was living in. Which seems pretty harsh for a guy coming out to ref a friendly game.
Right. The game actually ended 4-3, so I could probably tell why they were a little pissed off, because in a nail biter like that, you kind of need the person in charge to get the score right. So I get it, but yeah, it was a 4-3 score line. We talk a little bit about this 99ers team that just is running roughshod through the league that maybe wasn't the one that we picked on paper. But we'll talk a little bit about them with Coach MVP when we get him on in a second. But I mean, all in all, I think that that they have just the right balance of players, and there's a few guys. I mean, I wasn't there, but Aiden O'Driscoll, I assume he was not there.
No, he was not.
And I think he's got some other obligations that have kind of kept him out of the league. But I mean, if you think about if they had him, man, it would be there would be just no contest. But yeah, I mean, it was a battle of the undefeated, and the 99ers came out on top.
Well, the second half of that game was so riveting, and the first half of the Turtles one-timers was so convincingly one-sided that I didn't even make it over there to that field for the second half. Games say what's up to some of the players, said hi to Jonah, asked him the final score, and he said that Jonah's team, the one-timers, they only won by a score of 7-6. And so I was like, what did I miss? Shit. So we're going to have Matt on here in a little bit to give us the lowdown. But in the end, it was a much closer game in that Turtles one-timers game than it started out at. And that just goes to show that any game in this league can be competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. So overall thoughts, I wasn't there, but I get totally filled in each week on everything that's happening from players and from coaches and spectators like yourself. But I think the guys have just been battling, and at times The heat's been turned up because they all want to win. But the nice part is they leave the trash talk on the field, and Matt will definitely talk about that. And it's great to get his take on that. But they shake hands, they move on. And I think we're also starting to see some of the younger guys and the free agents start to really make a name for themselves. I mean, we talk about Mitch Wolf in goal, for example. Like, what a great free agent pickup that team got when both of their goalkeepers had other obligations back at school. But we talk about Eli Lloyd, talk about Gatto. These aren't your household crow names that you're used to hearing.
No.
There are some of those. I mean, you can even throw Midu in that mix as well. Midu's brand new to the club. So, the staples are still performing, but some of these newer guys are starting to amp up. But I also think that, those the big names, the veterans, there's been a lot of really good leadership that's come through that. And Matt talks about that as well. It seems like Matt kind of was reading our notes before we even had him on. But those guys are getting their players to matches, or they're picking up the right free agents to help balance their squad. They're keeping the level high. They're also keeping the peace, as we know things get a little bit hot. But that just shows that these guys are vested in the club, and you don't need a coach there to be telling them what to do. They're smart soccer players. They've been around the block, and this is their opportunity to further showcase their leadership and how vested they are in the club.
Well, John, I got a chance to talk to last week's MVP, Aaron Olson, on his way off the field. Something I think we want to try to do every week is talk to the MVP from the week before. Let's hear what he had to say. All right, I'm here with last week's MVP, Aaron Olson. Another victory this week for the 99ers. What do you attribute this streak to?
Veteran savvy. Organizational discipline out there. I think we just managed to play to our strategy a little bit better than each of the teams we faced in the first 3 weeks here, but that's bound to change. Every team's still figuring each other out. We've been a little quicker to do it.
Feels like every week there's a new contributor. Last week 3 goals, plenty of assists. This week Midu had something like 2 or 3 goals and 2 assists. Every week someone different. Is that kind of just the nature of the 7v7, rotating positions, moving all over the field?
Yeah, it definitely seems to be for our league. That's for sure. With 3 different players each week seemingly leading the scoreboard in that given week. But I think by the end of this thing, you're going to see the natural scorers, the true strikers, edge out some of the guys who might just have a good week like I did last week. I was gonna say, so that's kind of what your last week is, just irregular. 3 goals from a defender. I'd love to make it regular. I'd love to make it regular, but
the cool thing about the 7v7 though is like you and Zuhair in the back could still. I mean, you're still moving forward anyway.
Right.
Plenty of times. You got plenty of shots from distance. So.
Small field, tight area, short distance, lots of touches. I mean, this is what you gotta love about this league right here. And in the absence of a regular season schedule and things like that, I think that this is a great idea. I think that it's well organized, and we've been able to have fun as players. So for anybody else who's come out to watch, I mean, that's just an added cherry on top of the Sunday.
4-3 victory could have looked like 10-3 if it weren't for the opposing goalkeeper. Kind of on his head. What's that guy's story?
I actually am not too familiar. I know that his name is Mitch. And I know that he apparently had a stint with United, so I think you can see why.
Yeah.
We had some shots today that the players who took the shots definitely thought they bagged one.
Yep.
And he, like you said, he stood on his head. It's just the nature of the week to week, and any game out here can be close.
Last question. The shit talking on your field was through the roof, and that's with the Olivers split up on different teams. I couldn't imagine going up against the Twin Stars with both Olivers lining up against you.
Fun years, fun early years. Yeah.
They're just running their mouth, man. What is that? Just part of the game, or are you guys gonna? Is it the way everyone was talking? Is that gonna kind of just go back to handshaking and friends, or is that something that stays on the field?
I hope that it decreases in terms of its in terms of his candor, I think the intensity is good.
Yeah.
I like the intensity. I like that people want to be out here and want to be performing at a high level. And I think that to a certain degree, you know, it's how certain people motivate themselves.
That's a good word, candor.
But, thank you. But yeah, to be honest, I hope it dies down a little bit.
Yeah.
But again, love the intensity.
Sweet. Well, thanks a lot, AO. We'll see you next week.
Yeah.
I think my main takeaway from what AO had to say, Nate, was that, and you mentioned it too, is that like on any given night with this high level of talent and just the embarrassment of riches and having a talent across all four teams, a night a guy can pop up and can perform and it's hard on the pick'em folks trying to figure out who they should hitch their wagons to. But you know, like you said, he was the MVP last week with 3 goals, carrying his team to victory, and then this week it was Midu in a very hotly contested game between the 99ers and the Dillionaires to take that number 1 spot. So it's great to see that the players are noticing that, you know, you just got to keep working hard, but on any given night, man, someone might have their gold boots on and be firing all cylinders.
Well, you know, and you know, I'm a writer, so I love a good word. So I appreciated his use of candor when we were talking about, you know, a lot of the mouthing off on the field, the talk across teams, and to, you know, but like you said, you know, intensity, great, love to see it. Really love to see guys get fired up for their games, fired up to compete. It's just a matter of how do you focus that into something that's productive and maybe dial down the candor or the honesty, so as to maintain the integrity of the brotherhood and maintain the integrity of the team. And I think that's something that, you know, the team's been really good at doing in the past. So I'm not super worried about it. It was just something as a spectator that was really striking, being right down on the field.
Getting to hear
week.
about the. So, speaking of AO being the player of the week in week 2, our week 3 player of the week is none other than,
here we go,
Mito Youssef, on the back of 2 goals and 2 assists. If you're Justin Oliver, you kind of got to wonder, what's it going to take for a guy to win player of the week? He has been the bridesmaid, never the bride, the last 3 weeks. So if you're listening, Justin, definitely plug into the matrix and just keep doing what you're doing, and it's going to come. But yeah, Mito, basically in the second half, it sounds like accounting for 4 goals. And that, Nate, will get you player of the week honor. So congratulations to Mito. We'll catch up with him on the show after the match and see what he has to say. But if you're following along with the Golden Boot race, it's oh man, it's pretty tight. So for leading the Golden Boot race at 9 goals over 3 games is Cole Schwartz, the goal scoring dynamo out of Gustavus, the leader of all the land in Division III soccer last year in goal scoring for Gustavus at 9. Then you have Justin Oliver trailing with 5, and he is tied atop that with Mito and Will Kidd at 5 as well. Anyone's game unless Cole Schwartz keeps scoring goals here, but that's the Golden Boot race for you. But we also have the Pick'em, Nate. So why don't you talk a little bit about the Pick'em, considering a little team called PK Control seems to be doing pretty darn good.
We did okay. But everyone keeps getting better. 14 people got at least one match correct, who choosing the one-timers, and 10 correctly chose the 99ers in another impressive win. 99ers staying undefeated through 3 matches. We this week saw our first ever 2 10-point teams. Two teams got 10 points or more this week. That would be and another team, because we picked Mito Youssef as the MVP.
Yeah, collusion, I'm thinking.
I'll tell you, you know the secret, John? It's I'm getting all my information from a little podcast that I like to listen to, where I heard the week before that Mito was doing great, and so I decided to hang my hat to him. And if you're not listening to that podcast, you're not going to get the information that you need in order to succeed in Pick'em.
Yep. So our week 3 leaders really definitely shook up the top of the table. Once again, PK Control, your team, Nate, took the weekly top spot at 14, which means you got MVP and both games correct. Not so great on the 5-pointers, though. Gotta get your distance shooting calibrated for those.
What are the 5-pointers? Is getting the score right?
The score right, yeah. I mean, these are hard.
Oh.
What people don't realize is like it's easy to say, yeah, the Billionaires are going to win, or 99ers are going to win, or whatever.
You're just basically picking a number and thinking
a
like,
combined number. We've had quite a few people who are really close on it, and last week we a few folks that got it, but the 10-pointers equally is tough because you only get really 4 options, and then you have the write-in vote. So
yeah, I mean, I'll give credit to myself and to the replacements for writing in Midu.
Yeah, because the replacements came in second in the week with 10, so they would have been at a fat 0 if they hadn't gotten that correctly. And then the Hamlin, Hero Specs, and Boom Island 1849 both received 9 points. So if you're following along the leaderboard after 3 weeks, Nate, you are in first place with 20. The Big Green is at 19, and the replacement for a season S, but I don't know if that was a typo, but that's what they had on their form. They're in at 18, and I am farther back. We won't really talk about my number. So there you go. Those are the leaders this week in Pick'em.
Yeah, well, hey, congrats to everyone. Top few for this week should have already been contacted by Sarah about earning a spot to watch live next week. It has hit your inbox, so make sure that you answer right away and get in on it for Wednesday night.
We asked the people in the Pick'em League last week, who should we have on after the show? After much deliberation, it was decided that the people wanted to hear from head coach Matt Van Ben Scoten. So here you are, folks. We are pleased to welcome Coach Matt back to the show. Matt, how you doing?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
Pretty good. Just navigating life.
Yeah, I understand.
So we're now moving into like the halfway point of the league. You talked to us a little bit about how things are going so far after week 2, but maybe for those that weren't listening, in your opinion, kind of how is this 77 kind of futures model experiment going with what we're doing to deploy it with as a test for the first and second team guys?
Yeah, I think it's going really well. I was a little bit tentative just on how it was going to go, and I mean, let's call it for what it is. It's kind of a glorified in-house league, and I didn't know how guys were going to respond, and I didn't know, how seriously we're going to take it. But I think the guys they're super competitive, which is awesome, and I'm really happy about that piece. I think the Pick'em League is super cool just to engage fans and, have them come out and be part of it. Like, cause I know we're all a little bit soccer and have much this summer. So I've been really happy with it.
Nice. That's good to hear. I mean, we talked a little bit too on the show last week, Nate and I did, about how there's points and times within the league that it just seems like it's just the highest level pickup in the city. And we want to try to get away from that, but it is partly that, right? Like we're putting all these high performing soccer players in this atmosphere, so you're going to get that, and you're going to get less, off the ball movement, and you're going to get less kind of team cohesion. But we are moving into that last part of the season. You'd have to think as a coach that some of these guys are going to try to figure it out.
For sure. Oh, absolutely. And it was interesting too because. So in the game that I was reffing last week, we ended up, both teams were actually short a couple guys. So we played 7v7 with goalies rather than 8v8, and we moved the goals up a little bit so there's less space. And even listening to a couple guys just try to sort that piece out. And Jonah actually was the one who said he said he preferred that model because it forced them to play rather than sit in and counterattack like what was happening in previous games, which is great. And you could hear the guys kind of talking just from a tactical standpoint. Hey, you need to step, you need to slide, sit in, do this, do that, and it, like from a coaching standpoint, that's awesome because that's what I want them to be doing more of in the moment anyways. And quite frankly, I think it's one of the things like we need to get better at as a team is like, you guys got to be able to problem solve on the fly. Like we as the coaches will help you with it, but you guys got to be the one to take initiatives. And so I think from that standpoint, the league has been great because you see guys not wanting to lose, trying to get their guys together and figure out, hey, how are we going to go about winning this game?
Right. I was talking to newcomer Mitch Wolf, who's stepped in to play some goalkeeper, and he was just saying that it's so impressive that one, so pleased to be playing at the high level that we offer, and the professionalism of what we're putting out there as a newcomer. But he was so pleased to see how it really is that problem solving on the fly thing where either guys are making decisions in game or they're trying to figure things out during in game. But as soon as a halftime rolls around, it's the older veteran players who are diving in and they're saying like, this is what I see wrong. This is how we're going to fix it. And you don't need like a coaching staff there to do that.
No, not at all. And we've been really intentional on that piece of just saying, look, we're going to try to be pretty hands off with this because I think from a coaching standpoint, we just want to watch as well. Like we don't want to get into it and very much and sort it out. But, at the same time too, like it's sort of an evaluatory tool for us to say, all right, who really wants to compete in this environment? Who are the leaders who are really willing to step up and take that initiative? And you can kind of see some things if you as a coach and the staff just take a step back. So I 100% agree. I really like that aspect.
So who has been or who are the bright spots, either some of the newer guys or maybe even some of the staple Crows so far at almost the halfway point of the league?
Yeah, I think the obvious one is Max Stiegwart. I think he's starting to really kind of come into his own as a captain. And he's unbelievably competitive, almost to a fault sometimes, but he wants to win and he's not apologetic in that standpoint. So he really kind of just takes the bull by the horns and say, hey, this is what we need to figure out. This is how we sort things. So I think he's been really good. I think a guy like Nick Hutton, and especially for him as a forward, sometimes it's hard to be more engaged tactically.
Especially in that setting. It's real tough.
Right. Yeah. But it's been good to see him kind of step up and talk to different guys in different moments. And another one that's really, I think, kind of been forced into taking more of a leadership role is Miles Norville. And it's been great because Miles is that guy who he doesn't say a lot, but when he does, you want to listen because he's very thoughtful in what he's going to say. It's not just going to be, words for word's sake. And I've appreciated seeing that side of him because he is so, mild mannered and kind of reserved. And so to see a guy like that step up and start to take some initiative when it comes to, just trying to take some of that leadership has been awesome.
Nice.
So Matt, one of the things I mentioned earlier is that it's kind of hard to watch two games at once. And I was watching the Dillionaires versus the 90 game.
Yeah.
I get back and forth between the two, but it's definitely hard with a baby in your arms. So it's nice. Once I saw that you were the ref of the other game, I thought, oh, good. Matt can give me the down low.
Yeah.
So second half starts, and if you remember, Dan Hoodemans tackled by Turtles.
Yep.
But led by the aforementioned Miles Norville.
Correct.
We're down 3-1. It did not look good for them.
It did.
And then when I caught up with Jonah after the games, he said that his team only won by a goal, 7-6.
Yep.
How did the rest of the game play out that saw the Turtles almost turn it around, scoring the 5-4?
It's really interesting because this actually came to fruition a little bit last night when we were doing our kickabout. We sort of had this tendency, and I say we because it's happened to all these teams, like they'll jump out to big leads and somehow the other team will find a way back in. So part of it is a little bit of knock on the team that like is ahead. Like you got to figure out a way to close this down and like don't give any momentum. But I also like on the other hand though, like I'm happy that these other teams, like when they're losing by multiple goals, are not throwing the towel in and are trying to find ways to get back into it. And so in that specific game, honestly, it's that cliche, right? You find a guy who's hot, you get him the ball, you let him score. And Cole Schwartz, who's Gustavus guy, and he was slated to be on Minneapolis City 2 this year, I think, and to be really honest, probably would have made a push for Minneapolis for the NPSL team at some point. The dude, like, he just finds ways to score goals, and it's hard to find those pure goal scorers. But I think he had 20 something last year in the MIAC, and for me, being around the MIAC 12 to 13 years, I think the closest anybody, like the most anybody else has had that's even close to that is like 14 or 15. And that might've been Brandon McGarity way back when. So for Cole to get 20, 22 or however many he had is just an obscene amount. And it's not like he's doing it against bad competition. And then when you see him play like you did last Wednesday, like the dude just knows how to score. Like it doesn't matter. He had one goal that was near side, but he hit it so quickly with his toe, goalie couldn't react. He had another one where he just turned the guy, got the angle on him, and knew exactly where he wanted to go with it. And, you know, I think the team, I think it was Turtles. Yes, Turtles figured out like, hey, let's give Cole the ball and let's see what he does with it. And, you know, in an 11v11, it's a little bit harder to do that. But in 7-a-side, when you've got the time and the space, if you get him the ball, he's going to cause some pandemonium. So I think that was a big part. And like the reality too is momentum is a real thing. And, you know, for both teams, like Turtles decided like, you know, once they got this goal or two and they got back into it, they're like, all right, like game on, let's go. And the other team starts to panic a little bit. And what was really interesting too was, speaking of Miles Norville, he actually went down with an injury in the last 5 minutes. So the Turtles team was actually playing a man down at the time and still managed to only lose by a goal, which was even more impressive on my end. Was like, all right, like, again, you have all the reasons in the world to stop playing, but you didn't, and you kept going at it and, you know, nearly got rewarded for it.
Nice. So you put out something that I noticed while I was there, and you have acknowledged over the course of the week via a tweet was this idea that you really do wish more people could see behind the scenes on the field at Minneapolis City, because everyone's a great player, but they're also quality human beings. They really fight tooth and nail to win, and I witnessed that on fields, whether there was with physicality or some mind games and a lot of mouthing off.
Oh, yeah.
You also said that they're the first ones to support each other as teammates. Do you want to elaborate a little more on what you've been seeing over these last few weeks and what solidified this opinion of yours?
For sure. I appreciate you asking the question because, I really wish people could see more behind the scenes. And that's why I think it's great for fans to come out and just kind of see these guys up close and you get kind of a taste of a little bit about what goes on. But yeah, you know, I think we've had an ongoing conversation as a staff on just the culture piece, right? And we have this unwritten unofficial rule of we have a no asshole policy, right? And so, you know, the guys kind of do a relatively good job of policing that themselves. But one of the things that has struck me in the last few weeks has been, even within this league, guys are really getting after it, which is phenomenal. That's what we want. But they're also, you know, they're doing it where they're getting after each other, and it's great. And you know, I was having this conversation with one of our players, and I think the thing is that I if I was just a fan sitting there, I'd see some of this back and forth mouthiness between guys and be like, oh man, like these guys hate each other. And but it's the opposite. They don't. They actually, when they get off the field, are totally cool about it. They respect the hell out of one another, and they'll tell each other that, you know, and if we even ever get close to crossing the line, you know, guys will speak up on that. And I think that's where Max has done a really good job. And so, you know, I'll use this example because I think everybody who was there saw it last week, even though I actually didn't because I was reffing the other game. But like last week, Justin and Medu were the ones who were kind of leading all of this, right? And, you know, if you know Justin Oliver, he's very good at getting under people's skin. And I think if you did an official poll of Duluth fans who their most hated Minneapolis player, it's without a doubt Justin Oliver, right? I mean, he's that guy you hate to play against but love when he's on your team. And as Midu's joined us and has been with us since February, he's proven to be that same kind of guy. And it was really funny to me because I was talking to one of our coaches after the game, and he was like, the worst thing that happened to that team that lost was Justin made a comment about Midu and got him pissed off, and then Midu went and scored 2 goals and got a couple assists, and that was the difference maker. And so it's funny to see a guy like Justin, who's really good at doing that kind of stuff, have somebody do it back to him, and in this case, do it better. But again, I think it's a really good thing. And and so even last night too, like guys were getting into it, and guys are losing, and Troy's yelling at somebody, and Ian Smith is yelling back at Troy, and Max is yelling at Ian, and it's great. And after the game though, Troy couldn't find his keys, and I've been on other teams where guys would just dip out. It's not my problem, whatever. But those same guys who were screaming insults at each other 10 minutes ago are exactly the same guys who are out there trying to find a buddy, support one another. And we're not perfect at it for sure. We definitely have a long way to go, and I think we can improve on it. But it's the ideal and what you want to have your team to be, right? And actually Steve said it really good last night. He's like, you don't have to be an asshole, but you want your teammates to be bastards. Like, you want them to just piss the other people off. You want them to fight tooth and nail. But after the game, like, we're good, right? And again, everybody wants that, but having been in so many different team environments, it's not as easy as you might think to accomplish that. And I think it goes back to just the core group of guys that we have, and the precedent we've set as a club, which is, hey, look, we're not going to have assholes, because assholes can derail all of this. Like, you got to be a half decent person and understand what we're about as a club. And if you can do that and be part of this, you're going to fit in really well, because you're going to help us be successful. So, it's like I said, we're still learning it, and there's still ongoing conversations, but I'm really happy and really proud of how the guys have taken that and are willing to really get after it. But at the end of the day, and push each other to get better. But then after the day, be like, hey, we're cool. Like, this is the brotherhood. We're in this together. So
when we started the league, and we announced the teams, there were some clear favorites on paper. One of them being the tackle by Turtles, seeing that you had Rory O'Driscoll and Eli Goldman. But what some folks didn't understand was that some of these guys would be going back to college. So I think the tables have turned a little bit. And
for sure.
Do you feel that we have a clear runaway in the hunt for the Ben Wexler Brotherhood Cup in the Paisley Park 99ers? I mean, and what have they done to see them be the only undefeated team left so far, and do they have the momentum to keep it going?
This is going to sound really cliche. I think the biggest thing they have is their players have showed up consistently, and they've found that cohesion. Because I've kind of actually every game that I've watched, I've seen the Turtles, who are I think 0-3 or 0-4, whatever.
Yeah, they're 0-3.
And the thing, even with that team though, like, they're not that far off. Like, the downside to them is they give up buckets of goals early on, and then they have to battle back, and it's just too little too late. But Elder's been injured, so Hoodeman's had to fill in, and nothing against Dan. Miles has been hurt, and especially after the first game, when you lose 2 guys of Rory and Eli's caliber, and they go back to a top 25 D1 team in New Hampshire, like, yeah, that's going to impact your team a little bit. But so I don't know. I mean, I think there's clearly, like, the team that has established itself now, but I don't know if they're the runaways. I really don't. And even last week, I mean, I think it proved that it was a close game, either way. So, and the beauty of it is, like, we're going to get to the knockout stage, quote unquote, and we're going to have the 1 team play the 4 team, the 2 team play the 3 team, and anything can happen in one game situations. So we'll see.
When you look at their roster, I mean, you got Troy Luegi, Aaron Olson, Eli Lloyd, Zuhir, Jack Berry, Logan Huber, Jake Simmons, Ian Quigley, Aiden O'Driscoll, Javier Juarez, and Youssef. It's a very balanced team, and I think you're correct in that saying that like on any given day you're only missing 2 of those guys.
Right.
And it's not a killer where you're looking at someone like the Bob Dillionaires, who I had to fill in for, and luckily we were able to win that game to no credit of my own. But like they had to have me step in, and you look at this team, and if they had to have me step in because Mito's not there or Aiden O'Driscoll's not there, there's a big drop off.
For
Swamp,
sure.
swamp.
Yeah, so I think you're 100% right about getting guys there, and also making sure that from a captain perspective that AO is keeping his guys accountable, and it looks like he has been.
Absolutely. No, 100%.
Matt,
and that's sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, now that we've seen, given that it really is going to be a lot of these newcomers that step up and, fill in the gaps as some of our older guys go back to, how are these newcomers adapting to being a part of this organization, and do you see anyone really stepping up and making a name for themselves?
Yeah, I think so. And again, I think it starts with just the leadership that we have, where, I'll use Max and AO just because of the 2 captains. Like they hold everybody to a really high standard, and it for better, for worse, what it forces these newcomers to do is to sink or swim. Either you are going to be in and you're going to play balls to the wall, or AO is going to rip your head off because his team gave up a goal and now he's pissed at you. Like, welcome to a high level environment. And, it's different for everybody, but how you respond to that is really critical. And I think that, I obviously won't go into names, but I think some players have struggled with that, where others have understood that and actually really thrive because of it, where it's like, all right, like I don't want that to happen, so I'm going to step up. We've talked about Eli Lloyd quite a bit. I think he's definitely garnered the respect of players just through his play. And he's a kid who is part of Minnesota United's DA, may go back there at some points. But in the meantime has really enjoyed his time with us and has been really respectful on that piece. So I think he's definitely one who's been solid. And you mentioned Javier Juarez, who was a guy who kind of, I don't want to say quietly joined us, but, made the team and was okay, didn't stand out, but wasn't an outlier for bad reasons either. But man, last night, like, and I haven't watched him super closely, but people keep saying, like, you got to watch him. He's doing really well. And so last night when we were just doing this kickabout playing 9v9, man, he was unbelievable. He took Zahir on twice and made him look unbelievably bad. And then twice he pulled the Darwin Quintero chip over Troy. And like, not even from like a faraway distance. It was like, I don't know how he did it, but he did it twice the exact same way, where he just floated it over Troy, back post, upper corner, like just dropped it in. And you're just like, holy shit. Like, all right. So I think a lot of it is, once guys get comfortable, they find that confidence and they start to show out a little bit. So you look at a guy like Eli, you look at a guy like Javier, and it's like, man, yeah, now you guys, you're starting to get it, and you're letting your play speak for yourself. So, yeah, there's definitely been some positives that have come and that we've seen from some of these new guys.
Like you said, even with the 7v7, you're moving the nets a little closer, making it a lot smaller field, even smaller than it would be if it was 7v7 plus goalie, so 8v8. So that means, these games are really favoring ball movement in tight spaces. Sure. What, if anything, how will that benefit the team when it's time to move back to full field 11v11?
Yeah, no, good question. And one of the emphases that we, without getting, into the weeds on the tactical piece, I mean, we really, as a staff, have said, look, this is the kind of style of soccer we want to play. We want it to be possession based. We want it to be where we are dictating the tempo on the field in the game, because we always think we're going to be the better team. And, last year was a good year for us, 2019. We won, but you go back and watch the games and they were a lot closer than they should have been. And, you know, without being egotistical or confident, like we kind of just said, look, fuck it. Like we shouldn't be winning these games 2 or 3-1. It should be 5, 6, 7, because we think we're good enough. And, you know, maybe we're overestimating what we're capable of, but I don't think so. And I think it comes back to, we have at the end of the day, we have to keep the ball, and we need to keep teams out of games by dictating that. And I think we're, you know, going back to just the tactical piece with players and talking to one another, everybody, you know, from the time that you're 10 years old, everybody plays possession soccer, at least most good teams, coaches, that's the goal. But it always comes back to the how, right? You know, I see so many coaches like, oh, we got 700 passes today. Yeah, what was the final score? Oh, we tied 2-2. Who gives a shit? Like, put the ball in the net. And so if we're not like, there's not an achievable goal of winning or, you know, whatever, then possession is just possession with no real purpose. But for us, I think it's been, okay, you guys understand how to keep the ball really well. Awesome. Terrific. Now, how are we going to attack? How are we going to go forward? How are we going to, you know, control the tempo of everything? And
how do you keep the ball really well when you got to execute 4 quick passes in order to find
exactly right? And we talked about the actions that we did some defending stuff. We talked about, hey, sometimes possession is just to pull the defenders in so we can create space and attack elsewhere. And it, you know, for being high level players, they don't always see that. And I think it's interesting because some of them as coaches are now starting to see more of that. But it's still one thing when, you know, you're a coach versus a player and you're in the moment, like your brain kind of shuts off and you're just like, I got to go, you know, play quick, play whatever. So I hope this will translate into 2021 where, you know, look, we've got the possession, the speed of play is great, but now we're actually being strategic in how we're attacking and how are we breaking teams down, and things like that. And so I'm optimistic it'll translate.
So when is the Futures League supposed to start? Because I know you're going to probably respond to some inquiries and maybe set up tryouts in November?
Yeah, I think that's the goal. And I actually have been a little bit more out of the loop on the Futures because it's been more JJ's initiative and Adam. But I believe we're going to do tryouts in November. I've actually had a couple players already reach out to me. I know JJ has sent some emails out. And I think, you know, the tough part about it too is right now both coaches and players are in high school season, and I think, you know, we want to work really well with coaches and be inclusive and cooperative. Like that's a big piece of what the Futures is. The problem is that's just for a lot of coaches and players, that's not the priority right now. They're just trying to get through a fall season without getting COVID and, you know. But I give, you know, JJ especially a lot of credit because he's pushing it forward and is really trying to do the recruiting piece of it and getting that word out there. And I think, you know, it's one thing to say that you're inclusive. And I won't name names about, you know, another local team that's bigger than us saying that, but not exactly doing that. You know, it's one thing to say that, but it's another thing to actually put that into action. And I think what I've been most proud of with this is all of the conversations have centered back to really what is the core of the Futures? What are we trying to do with this? And how do we make it such where this isn't just lip service? This isn't just another thing where we're trying to, you know, recruit the super rich white kids. Like how do we find those kids who are underserved or in different pockets of the community that may not have access to club soccer? Like that's a big thing for us. So
you're going to get me on a tangent. I had a totally separate question, but it's something that's been kind of on our minds as we've been talking to friends who in programs all over the cities. And it really comes down to like the politics within the club system is
for
insane.
Sure.
And you know, you're kind of in that, so I don't want to get you to turn you know, too harshly. But you know, when it comes down to it, there are high schools where you won't play the varsity team unless you're on XYZ club, right? There are clubs where they're not gonna let you displace a kid on the A squad even if you show up better because, you know, this kid will ride the bench and his parents won't complain.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like just all sorts of weird little internal things. And the more I think of it, the more it's like, God, you know what sucks is that there are, you know, in my man Luis's Revolution League, you know, in North Minneapolis, there are tons of super talented, you know, Hispanic kids, or there are tons of super talented East African kids that are playing in Cedar Riverside that would never get a sniff at cracking some of these higher level clubs.
For sure.
So it's frustrating. It's frustrating in that, you know, to that level. But I'm like, inclusivity is a process, and making inroads into these communities is a process. So hopefully, you know, it's definitely a mission.
Absolutely.
To undertake, and we're probably going to see year 1, year 2, like, holy crap, this is a hyper diverse team. But I think it's admirable to approach it
for sure. And
way.
you know, and I think you nailed it on the head when you said this is going to be a process, especially for a lot of these different groups, these different ethnic group, minority groups. They haven't had a great experience with club soccer. I've seen it firsthand where they might have 1 or 2 really good players. What do the rich clubs do? Like, they come in and take those players and yeah, it may give that player a good experience and make the team better, but it negatively impacts that other team in the community. And that's, and so again, we want to be really cognizant of that. And I've actually, you know, one of the good things that's come out of COVID is it's allowed me and others to have good conversations with some of these groups, because regardless of what you want to say, it has to start with your reputation and the relationships you build. And those are not things that are going to happen overnight. So, you know, I've had some really good conversations where it's just really just, you start with like, hey, tell me what you're doing. I want to learn more. And that's a really good starting point. And I'll use Kyle Johnson from the Karen FA as an example. And I've gotten to know him and what he's doing. And it's unbelievable. Like those
are those kids that nutmeg the shit out of you, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We don't need to discuss that again, but yeah. But yeah, no. And but you're 100% right. And it's, you know, when you talk about soccer leaders, like that is an absolute soccer leader who is literally just out of the goodness of his heart as almost a financial sacrifice, time sacrifice, because he wants to see these kids have opportunities. And you know, you look at like those girls and how they play.
They crush, dude.
They're unbelievable. And I'm looking around, like, you know, some of these other clubs, and I'm like, you would wipe the floor with these teams. And what was really interesting in talking to Kyle was he said, you know, you're right. The problem is, though, these girls don't have the confidence. They show up, and if they ever have the opportunity to play against some of these bigger clubs, or even when they're in high school, they see these kids from, you know, the big clubs in the state, and they've got the fancy shoes and they've got all the stuff, and they just think we don't belong on this field. And so it's almost like a self-sabotaging thing to begin with. But you know, like, the product speaks for itself. And it's interesting. I was literally having this exact same conversation with Zahir last night, because we were talking about Javier, and he was like, yeah, man, like, this dude is good. He's just, you know, never had that real opportunity to kind of be around really good players, to have, you know, high quality coaching. And I don't want to, you know, I guess I don't want to assume that he hasn't had high quality coaching, but it's just that he's never had that opportunity. And so this is his opportunity, and that's part of why he feels confident. And so bringing it full circle back to the futures thing, I you know, like I said, it's imperative for us to really to put our money where our mouth is and say, we really do want this to be inclusive, to work with everybody. We especially want to go into those communities where players don't have that opportunities. And we're not here to, you know, rob you of talent. We want to work with you. And, you know, this is where a guy like Brendan Doyle has done incredible work behind the scenes with trying to make some of those inroads, whether it's the Karen FA, whether it's Revolution, and just starting to have those conversations, because like I said, it hasn't been a good experience for a lot of these different players and communities. And so there's this element of distrust that's been built in. So how do we fix that? And how do we really not take advantage of these players and clubs, but how do we really cooperate with them? And, I think I put it on Twitter a couple of weeks ago. Well, when I got the shit negged out of me, it was Mario with TC Seoul, and it was Kyle with Karen FA, and us with Minneapolis City, and had some players, and we came together and just did futsal. And so it really is like, for all those players, like, hey, look, we want to hang out and do soccer with you guys and learn from you. And if there's more we can do to give you guys opportunity, let's do that. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I think a big thing we found, as a club early, right, is that a lot of these teams, neighborhood teams and community teams find that when clubs come to them, it's like,
Exactly.
What can you do for us? And we'll just put your name on a jumbotron, when really it's like, we gotta just build a relationship a little differently with them. Every time we talk to you, it's we get down a different road. It's always great. So
I love it.
we really appreciate you. We really appreciate you joining us. It started out as just like, please tell us what happened in that second game. And now we get into the philosophy of community soccer. So I definitely love it. Thanks again for joining us, man. We'll catch up with you hopefully later on this week.
Appreciate you guys.
All right, see you, man.
Take it easy.
And I believe, Nate, that is all we have for this week's show, unless we shake out the rug and there's any other topics in there. But if there isn't, we'd like to thank our show sponsor, Summit Brewing Company. October is already in the air, and you know what that means. It is Oktoberfest season in stores. Outside of the summer ale, and then clearly, if you were following along during our esports fame, the Cabin Crusher are two of my favorite Summit choices. However, I am a huge Oktoberfest fan, and that might just be the blood coursing through my veins. But get to stores today and fill your fridge up with some goodness. Summit, a more meaningful brew since 1986. I'm German, folks, if you haven't figured that out yet.
Once, it's funny. This totally reminds me of this random shit my uncle said to me once. But he was like, "Oh, so does your dad like wax his car windows?" And I was, or something like, I don't know. Yeah, he did do it once. It's all right. I don't know why he was telling me about this. But he's like, it's an ethnic thing. That's really messed up, dude. But okay.
I thought you were going to go with something more colloquial in that you drink Corona or some Dos Equis or something like that.
And so what I was getting at is then your love of Oktoberfest must definitely be an ethnic thing.
Yeah, definitely. So if giving back to the community means a lot to you, maybe it's time to give to the club that gives back. Minneapolis City is a 501c3 that provides a safe, reliable, and fun environment for young people to play the beautiful game, as well as donating to our newly formed Futures Program Scholarship Fund. So consider a tax-deductible donation to a truly city-focused organization. Do you have anything you want us to cover? Because clearly you don't really listen this far in the show, but if you are, any guests you want to have,
who would?
It's really easy to do. Send us some email. It's super easy. Hit us up on Twitter at the People's Pitch. Or if you want to send us email, mcsepodcast@gmail.com. And then if calling's your thing, we're going to get one of those call-in shows again back up and running. You can hit up our hotline at 612-460-5683. All questions and comments and concerns are welcome. And finally, complain to the club at MPLS City SC on Twitter. So that's it, Nate.
That's it.
I'm John. That was Nate. That was Matt Van Benscoten, head coach, the fearless leader of the Crows. We'll be back next week with more 7v7 action. So get your picks in and don't get hoofed in Pick'em League.
By me.
Poster burning maple weeds, cradle major keys. Thinking back, I've been major since the minor league. So supreme, too much sauce off my olive NMDs. I could staple steez, bend the goat so I get the cheese. Never fall, rake them leaves and make sure every moment gets seized. And everything I see is make